They say family is supposed to be your first taste of unconditional love. But what do you do when the woman who raised you only ever served you bitterness in porcelain smiles? I wasn't born into hatred. I was born into a home that once knew warmth before. She arrived. My mother died when I was just 7. I remember the scent of her jasmine lotion, the soft way her fingers ran through my curls, the lullabies she'd hum when the world outside got too loud. She was soft, safe, and then she was gone. After that, silence replaced song. My dad didn't cry much, but I heard him weep in the shower when he thought I was asleep. For a while, it was just the two of us in our quiet grief. But grief gets lonely, doesn't it? Within a year, she entered our lives. Her name was Marissa, a vision of beauty, sophistication, and carefully curated grace. She had flawless hair, a wardrobe that sparkled, and a voice that could melt butter when she wanted to. And for a while, I tried to like her. I really did. I wanted to believe that maybe my dad had found happiness again. Maybe she'd be a mother figure. Maybe our broken little house could feel like a home again. But from the beginning, something felt off. She never looked me in the eye when she smiled. Her compliments were laced with pity, like she was handing charity to a beggar. She'd say things like, "Oh, sweetie, you're wearing that dress again. It's so brave of you not to care what others think." Or, "You're smart," in a quirky, backroom library kind of way. Quirky, brave, different, all code words for not good enough. She called it kindness. I called it venom wrapped in silk. And worse, my dad started changing too. At first, he was still present. He'd help me with my math homework, tuck me in on weekends. But slowly, his attention slipped away. Like sand draining through fingers. Marissa wanted their alone time, their new life. We became they. I became invisible. By the time I turned 12, I had learned to stay quiet. I knew better than to interrupt their dinner parties or ask for help with school projects. I started teaching myself how to braid my own hair, how to cook basic meals, how to navigate the world without needing anyone. Because I had no one. And then came her favorite word, low life. She said it once under her breath, when she thought I wasn't listening. I had asked if I could go to a weekend coding camp. It was a free program downtown for girls interested in tech. Her response: "What for? She's not going anywhere. She's not like those other girls with money and brains. Let's be real, she's just a lowlife trying to cosplay as someone important." That word stung. Not because I believed her, but because my dad didn't say a single thing. He just kept eating. That night, I cried into my pillow like a kid. But the next morning, something changed in me. If she was going to call me a lowlife, I'd become the kind of lowlife who'd build a kingdom in silence. I started saving lunch money, doing odd jobs online, tutoring other students in math after school. I used the old desktop in the library to teach myself HTML, Python, JavaScript, anything I could find for free. I lived in the background. But in that background, I was quietly building something. I didn't go to prom. I didn't join the cheer squad. I didn't even ask for a graduation party. While Marissa threw galas and charity luncheons, I was busy building code that would one day eclipse her name in Google searches. At night, they laughed downstairs, clinking wine glasses, talking about important things. I listened from upstairs, headphones on, writing algorithms, designing platforms, solving problems for people who'd pay me in quiet gratitude. I became obsessed, not with money, but with power. The kind of power they couldn't see. The kind that didn't need permission. But back then, no one knew to them. I was still the weird stepdaughter with thrifted clothes and strange hobbies. To me, I was the girl who would rewrite her future. in code line by line. And one day, I'd make them regret every single word. Even if I said nothing at all. Asterisk asterisk, the day I got accepted into the state university on a full academic scholarship, I didn't tell anyone. Not my father. Definitely not. Marissa. I held the letter in my hand, quietly trembling with pride, then folded it, placed it in a drawer under my sweaters, and went downstairs like nothing had changed. Because in that house, anything that belonged to me was either ignored or minimized. Marissa would have said something like, "Oh, a public school? How quaint." So I kept it to myself. My graduation was coming up, and I walked the stage in a borrowed dress and worn-down flats, with no family in the audience. My name was called. No cheers, no claps, just my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. When other kids went out for dinner with their families after the ceremony, I took the bus home alone. The house was quiet when I arrived, like no one even noticed what day it was. They were on a weekend retreat in Aspen. I remember sitting on the porch that night, watching fireflies, eating a bowl of instant noodles and thinking, this is the last time they'll ever have the power to make me feel invisible. And I was right. College wasn't glamorous. I didn't suddenly become someone. I didn't go viral. I didn't land a rich investor or launch an app overnight. But I worked. I worked when my classmates partied. I worked when I was sick. I worked on Christmas and on my birthday. I took classes during the day, freelanced at night, and ran 3 different online profiles to earn a living writing code, designing templates, solving problems. Some nights I cried from exhaustion, but I kept going. Because for the first time, no one could belittle me for dreaming. There was no Marissa reminding me of what I wasn't. There was only me and the screen, and the promise of something more. By my 3rd year, I had saved up enough to skip a semester and take a chance on an idea. A small tech platform that connected freelance designers with startups needing short-term creative help. Not revolutionary, not flashy, but it worked. It started slow, a few users here, a few dollars there. Then word spread. By the end of the year, we had over 5,000 active users. I didn't sleep much during those months. I lived off instant coffee and hope. But I was building something real, and people were paying attention. I still remember the moment I hit my first $100,000. I was in my shoebox apartment, sitting on the floor, wearing pajama pants with holes in them, staring at the screen. And I laughed. Not a joyful laugh, more like disbelief. A laugh that said, they'll never believe this. But I didn't post about it. I didn't even text anyone, because still no one really knew what I was doing. Especially not them. Marissa still sent the occasional condescending holiday message. Hope you're doing something productive this year. Or, I heard you dropped out for a bit. Such a shame. I always hoped you'd marry someone stable. My dad never reached out on his own. If he did speak, it was in vague, scripted messages. I think he was ashamed of how distant we'd become. Or maybe he was just too afraid of rocking Marissa's boat. Either way, I was done waiting for either of them to notice me. Because soon, the money would start pouring in, and then they'd notice. But by then, I wouldn't care. The thing is, when you grow up invisible, success becomes your language of survival. You don't want revenge to be loud. You want it to be seen. But not by shouting. By walking into a room and letting your silence speak volumes. By the time I graduated, my platform had been featured on a mid-level tech blog. That one article drove thousands of new users. A seed round followed. I hired 2 remote employees. Within 18 months, the company was valued at just over $5 million. I still hadn't told a single soul in my family. I could have called them. Could have sent them a postcard with my company logo, or emailed them a press feature, just to say, "See? I made it." But that would have given them power. Power to react. Power to diminish it. Power to take credit. I wanted something different. I wanted silence. I wanted to succeed so fully, so thoroughly, that when they finally realized what I'd become, it would be too late to reach me. I still remember the message that changed everything. It came on a Tuesday afternoon, buried between marketing reports and investor feedback. "Hi there. We love what you're building. Any chance you're open to acquisition talks?" At first, I thought it was spam. But the email address checked out. A mid-sized tech firm based in Chicago, known for acquiring promising startups. I read it once, then again, my hands trembling. I wasn't even looking to sell. But they were serious. And more importantly, they were offering more than I ever thought my little platform could be worth. $10 million. $10 million. All legal. All real. I stared at the screen, heart thudding in my ears, wondering if the little girl crying on the porch years ago would even recognize the woman reading that email now. And when the deal closed 3 months later, I didn't pop champagne. I didn't go clubbing. Didn't tell my old college roommates or post it on LinkedIn. I just sat in a quiet cafe with my laptop open. And when the wire transfer hit, I closed my eyes, breathed in the scent of fresh coffee, and whispered to myself, "She called me a lowlife," because that word lowlife had branded itself into my soul. Not because I ever believed it, but because I had spent the last decade proving to myself that I wasn't. That night, I made a decision. I was going home. Not to reconcile, not to forgive, but to witness. To stand in the same space she used to own and see it for what it really was. Small, shrinking, powerless. They were having a dinner party. Marissa loved throwing them. She once told me that nothing made her feel more important than guests complimenting her china set. I hadn't spoken to them in nearly 2 years. But that night, I showed up unannounced. I didn't come in flashy. No designer dress or dramatic entrance. Just clean jeans, a sleek blazer, and confidence stitched into every step. The front door was open, typical for their neighborhood, and when I walked in, people turned, confused, curious. And then I saw her, Marissa, still polished, still wearing that fake socialite smile. For a second, her expression faltered. "Oh, look who the cat dragged in," she said, loud enough for the room to hear. A few guests chuckled awkwardly. I just smiled. I was in the neighborhood. She tilted her head. "Still trying to make something of yourself? Or just here to refill your plate from the adults' table?" A beat of silence. People were watching, waiting for me to react. I looked at her, straight in the eyes, and said with a calm voice, "No, Marissa. I'm just here to say goodbye." Confusion flickered across her face. "Goodbye? I've sold my company. I'm leaving the city. Thought I'd walk through the past one last time before I build a life you'll never be a part of." Her face fell, just slightly, then she scoffed. "Please, what company? You always were full of fantasy." I pulled out my phone and opened a public article, one with my face, my name, and the company sale announcement front and center. She read the headline. Her lips parted. Her wine glass trembled, just a little. And still I said nothing more, because I didn't need to. I turned to go, and as I walked out, I heard her voice smaller, fainter. "You think money makes you better than us?" I paused in the doorway. "No," I said, without turning. "But it sure made it easier to walk away." That was the last time I ever stood in that house. Got no drama. No yelling. No dramatic exits or slamming doors. Just a quiet woman with 10 million reasons to never look back. The next morning, I moved into my new home. A house on a hill. All white walls, glass windows, and silence. It wasn't the money that brought me peace. It was knowing that I had earned everything without ever becoming like her. Because that was the real revenge. Not success. Not wealth. But never turning bitter. Asterisk, asterisk, there's something eerie about getting everything you ever worked for. They don't tell you this part. The silence that follows success. The echo in the mansion halls when the guests leave. The contracts are signed. And the money settles into your account like a ghost you never quite asked for. At first. It was thrilling. I woke up every morning smiling, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets, with the sun pouring through my floor-to-ceiling windows. I made espresso in a $3,000 machine I didn't know how to use and laughed at the absurdity of it all. I'd drive along the coast in my new car with music blaring and the wind rushing past, and for a while it felt like I was free. But success is a strange kind of freedom. It unties your past. Yes, but it also makes you feel untethered. I didn't miss Marissa. I didn't miss the house I grew up in, or the cold dinners, or the fake smiles. But I missed something. A sense of direction, maybe. A reason to wake up and fight every day. I had spent so long running from pain. I hadn't thought about what I'd do when I no longer had to run, and that's when the emails started. From her. The first one was polite. "Hi, sweetheart. Just checking in. We heard you've done well. Your father and I are so proud." I didn't respond. A week later, another came. "We saw the article. Congratulations. Maybe we can catch up sometime." I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then deleted it. Then came a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice played in my ear hours later. "We were just thinking about you. Maybe it's time we reconnect. Your family, after all." Family. The word felt poisonous in her mouth. Then came the real message, the one where her mask slipped. "I don't know why you're ignoring us. We're your parents. After all we've done for you, this is how you treat us. The least you can do is give back." Give back? I read it 3 times, blinking in disbelief. All they'd done for me? Like calling me worthless? Like pretending I didn't exist unless guests were around? Like mocking my dreams and branding me a lowlife in my own home? No, I didn't owe them anything. I blocked the number. And that's when the calls came from other people, extended family, neighbors, even an old high school friend who said, "Your stepmom's been telling everyone you abandoned them after your big payout." Of course, she had. In her version of the story, I was the villain, the ungrateful daughter who got rich and forgot where she came from. But I hadn't forgotten. I remembered every slammed door. Every whispered insult. Every time she told people I was a charity case. And most of all, I remembered that the man who was supposed to protect me, my own father, let her do it. Silence isn't neutral. Silence is complicity. And he had chosen silence for far too long. Months passed. I focused on myself, traveled, donated quietly to girls in STEM programs, hired young women like me who never got a seat at the table and gave them one. I didn't splash my success across social media. I didn't throw parties or hire publicists. But somehow, word spread anyway. The silence that used to cloak me had turned into whispers that traveled. And then one day, I got an email from someone I hadn't thought about in years. Hannah. My half-sister, Marissa's daughter. We had never been close. She was younger, favored, dressed in pearls while I wore discount hoodies. Marissa had painted me as the jealous stepsister and herself as the benevolent queen. But Hannah's email was different. It was short. Just 4 lines. I know we were never friends, but I always admired you. Mom's in trouble. I thought you should know. That was it. No details. No guilt trip. Just honesty. I didn't respond right away. But I didn't delete it either. Something in her words felt real. Not like Marissa's sugar-coated demands. Not like Dad's practiced silence. Just a flicker of human truth. And I hadn't seen that in a long time. Asterisk. I sat with Hannah's message for a week. I read it late at night when the house was dark and quiet, when the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of a designer wall clock I'd never cared to set. Mom's in trouble. I thought you should know. Trouble? The woman who had once lorded over our lives like a socialite queen. What kind of trouble could break a woman who thrived on dominance and reputation? I didn't want to care. I told myself I didn't care. But curiosity has a funny way of slipping through the cracks. So, I opened a private browser tab and searched her name. Marissa Langford. The results came up fast. Photos of her at charity balls. Quotes in local lifestyle magazines. Her Instagram was public filtered pictures of wine glasses, beach trips, and garden parties. But then I saw the article. Former socialite, under investigation for financial mismanagement of charity funds. My eyes narrowed. According to the story, Marissa had been heading a women's wellness foundation. Donations had disappeared. Books weren't adding up. She'd missed multiple court dates. And her face, once pristine and poised, looked tired. Dark circles. Less polish. Less performance. But I wasn't satisfied with that. I needed to hear it from someone who wasn't spinning it for clicks. So for the first time in years, I responded to Hannah. Meet me tomorrow. 11 a.m. Luna Cafe. Don't be late. She was already there when I arrived. Still petite and put together, but different. Softer around the eyes. No longer wearing her mother's icy confidence like a second skin. She stood when she saw me, awkward, unsure whether to hug or shake hands. I didn't offer either. We sat. There was silence. Then, you look good, she said. You look surprised. I showed up, I replied. She smiled faintly. I wasn't sure you would. You have every reason not to. I folded my hands. So what's going on with her? Hannah sighed, looked down at her latte, and then spoke. She's drowning. The charity she ran. Well, it wasn't real. Or at least, not as real as she pretended. She was funneling money into our lifestyle. Dad didn't ask questions, he just signed things. Typical. And now? The IRS is involved. Her accounts are frozen. The house is up for sale. They're probably going to lose everything. There was no satisfaction in hearing it. Only silence. Why tell me? I asked. Hannah hesitated. Because I think deep down, she still believes you'll save her. That you'll come in and fix things because you're good. Even if she never treated you like it. I leaned back, letting those words settle. Good. Was I good? Did walking away make me cruel? Or did it just make me free? I'm not here to fix anything, I said flatly. I know, she replied. But I wanted to say, I'm sorry for how we treated you. I wasn't brave enough to see through it back then. But I see it now. Her voice cracked slightly, and that surprised me. Because she wasn't asking for money. She wasn't guilt-tripping me. She was just apologizing. And for a moment, I didn't know what to say. So I nodded. Just a small, almost imperceptible nod. And somehow she understood. Finished our coffee in silence. No promises. No emotional reunion. Just two women, once torn apart by someone else's cruelty, now quietly acknowledging each other in the wreckage. A week later, I received a letter in the mail. Not an email. A physical letter in Marissa's handwriting. It read, "You think you're above us now, that your money makes you better, that family isn't disposable. We were there when no one else was. You can't erase that. One day you'll need us, and I won't be waiting." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I expected. Entitlement dressed as wounded pride. Manipulation wearing the mask of motherhood. And she was right about one thing. They were there when no one else was. But what she didn't realize was, that's exactly why I became who I am. Asterisk. There's a kind of peace that comes when you finally realize you don't need closure. For years, I thought I was chasing it. I believed that if Marissa just apologized, if my father looked me in the eye and said he was sorry, something inside me would be healed. But standing in the aftermath of their collapse, reading that letter soaked in venom and denial, I felt something else. Relief. Not because I hated them, but because I no longer needed them to love me. I had learned to carry my own weight, build my own life, nurture my own self-worth without ever once hearing the words, "I'm proud of you." I didn't need them to see me now. But still, a part of me wondered, was my father okay? He was never cruel like Marissa. Just absent. A shadow. A man who had loved once, lost it, and then shrunk into someone else's expectations. So I drove past the old house one night. It was empty. The lights were off. A for sale sign tilted in the yard. The rose bushes Marissa once obsessively pruned were brown and dying. Even the windows looked hollow. A house full of echoes. I didn't stop. I just watched for a moment, then drove on. I thought that would be the end of it. But fate always has a way of delivering its final punch. A few days later, I got a call from Hannah. I hesitated before answering. "He left," she said. Her voice rushed, almost panicked. "Dad." He walked out, took a suitcase and didn't tell anyone where he was going. I blinked, stunned. Wait. Left as in? Gone? Gone. Marissa's spiraling. She's calling. Everyone. Screaming. He left her a note, apparently. Said he needed space. Said he was tired of pretending. I sat down. Hard. Tired of pretending. That line hit me in the chest like a stone. The man who had ignored me, abandoned me emotionally, allowed me to be mistreated, he finally cracked under the weight of her control. Why now? Why not when I needed him? I thought you should know, Hannah added softly. I think he regrets everything. I really do. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to find him, to ask him why he never stood up for me, to ask if he ever thought about how much it hurt to be forgotten. But another part, the stronger part, realized it didn't matter anymore. My healing didn't depend on his remorse. His journey was his own. Mine? Mine had already begun long ago. In silence, in code, in cracked keyboards and midnight breakthroughs. Weeks passed. I didn't look for him. Maybe that makes me cold. But I think sometimes the best thing you can do for the people who hurt you is to let them figure out who they are without you. I started writing a memoir. For fame. Not for clicks or clout. But because I wanted to own my story. All of it. The pain, the rise, the revenge through silence. I wanted girls like me, quiet girls, overlooked girls, to know that they didn't need to scream to be powerful. That sometimes walking away is the loudest thing you'll ever do. I titled the book, The lowlife who left. And to my surprise, it sold. Not because I pushed it, but because people could feel the truth in it. Raw, sharp, unapologetic. And that's when the final twist came. A letter. Another one. But this time, it wasn't from Marissa. It was from my father. Written in trembling ink on lined paper, postmarked from a small coastal town. It read, I failed you. I let her destroy the little light you had left. Not because I didn't love you, but because I was weak. I let fear make me a coward. But I see now what you've become. And I've never been prouder of anything in my life than I am of you. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to know I finally opened my eyes. I hope, wherever you are, you're happy. Dad, I cried. Really cried. Not because it fixed anything, but because I finally heard the words I had once begged for. Too late, yes, but still real. And that meant something. Asterisk, the truth is, healing doesn't arrive like a THUNDERCLAP. It's not a firework or some grand revelation. Sometimes it creeps in slowly like light under a locked door, gentle, quiet, persistent. After I read my father's letter, I didn't rush to respond. I didn't book a flight or write him back right away. Instead, I did something even harder. I sat with it. I let the weight of his words settle into the places in my heart I had boarded up for years. The places that used to ache for a father's protection, for acknowledgement, for love. He had failed me. Spectacularly. Repeatedly. But he had also tried finally. And while I wasn't sure I could forgive him completely, I realized something important. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at him. Not even at Marissa. Because what they had taken from me, I had reclaimed 1,000 times over. They had denied me love. I had given myself purpose. They had denied me support. I had built my own empire. Had denied me value. I had become invaluable. And when I stood in front of the mirror now, I didn't see a lowlife or a victim or a girl desperate for approval. I saw a woman who had walked through fire and came out gold. The book took off faster than I expected. I got interview requests, a podcast feature, a TEDx invitation. I turned most of it down. I wasn't chasing fame. I had lived long enough in the shadows to appreciate peace. But I did accept one local TV interview. A quiet sit-down. Nothing flashy. And a few weeks after it aired, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Old. Faded. Of me and my mother. I was maybe 5 years old, sitting in her lap, giggling as she kissed my cheek. We looked so happy, untouched by the grief that would come. Taped to the back was a note. She would have been proud. You turn pain into power. Keep going. Dad, that was the last I ever heard from him. And somehow, that felt complete. I bought a piece of land a few months later. Secluded. Peaceful. Nothing fancy. And I began to build not another mansion, but a retreat center. For young women. Survivors. Dreamers. The overlooked and underestimated. I called it the Lowlife. Project, a name that once made me shrink, now turned into a banner of strength. We offered free coding boot camps, emotional healing workshops, financial literacy, mentorship programs. It wasn't about turning everyone into millionaires. It was about helping them realize they never needed permission to take up space. Every girl who walked through those doors walked a little taller when she left, because she had been seen, heard, believed in, exactly the way I wished someone had done for me. And as for Marissa, word spread that she had moved out of the city, sold her jewelry, was renting a small condo near her sister's place. No more galas, no more glossy magazine spreads, She faded the way all performances do, quietly, with no encore. I never heard from her again. Not directly. But one of my old classmates reached out after reading my book. "Did you know Marissa used to call you a charity case in school meetings?" I laughed. "Yeah, I figured." "Well, she came to one of my sister's events recently. Sat in the back. Looked like she'd aged 20 years. I imagined her there, small, invisible in the crowd, watching other women succeed while knowing the one she tried to crush had created it all. And not out of revenge, but out of vision. That's the funny thing about revenge. The best kind isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just builds something so beautiful, so strong, that those who try to break you can't even enter the room. They stand outside. Knocking. While you pour tea for others inside. I used to think success was a number. A dollar sign with 6, maybe 7 digits. A penthouse suite. Designer clothes. Invitations to places I once only saw in movies. But it wasn't. True success, I learned, is peace. It's waking up in the morning without fear. It's looking in the mirror and not flinching at your own reflection. It's building something so solid inside yourself that no one else's voice can shake it. It's answering to no one but the woman you've worked so hard to become. One afternoon, I sat on the porch of the Lowlife Project's main lodge. It was quiet, peaceful. The wind moved slowly through the trees, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear soft laughter from a group of young women inside. One of the girls, her name was Annika, stepped out and sat beside me. She was 15, had come from a broken foster system, wore toughness like armor, but her eyes still held hope. "Miss Langford?" she asked quietly. "Call me whatever you're comfortable with," I said with a smile. She hesitated. "You were really called a lowlife." "Oh yeah," I said, chuckling. "A few times. Mostly by people who were terrified I'd become more than them." She looked away, nodded slowly. "That's how my aunt talks to me." "Do you believe her?" I asked. She paused. Then shook her head. "Not anymore. That moment, more than the money, more than the book sales, more than the headlines, felt like everything I had worked for was worth it. Because I wasn't just healing for myself anymore. I was handing others the blueprint to do the same. Later that year, a news outlet did a spotlight on the center. They wanted photos, testimonials, behind-the-scenes interviews. I agreed on one condition. "We don't talk about Marissa." They asked why. I told them this. She was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. That's the thing about people who try to bury you. They never expect you to grow into a forest. I had. And forests don't concern themselves with the whispers of dying weeds. I found a journal recently, tucked deep in a box from my college days. In it, I had written a list of goals when I was 19. Build something that matters. Make $100,000. Help girls like me. Never go back to that house. Be proud of who I am. All of them check. But then, at the very bottom in faded pencil, was one more line I had forgotten I ever wrote. Forgive them, even if they never say sorry. I stared at it for a long time. I had never said it out loud. Never wrote a letter or made a call. That somehow, I had. Not for them. For me. Forgiveness isn't saying what they did was okay. Okay.es. Saying it no longer has power over you. I didn't attend Marissa's trial. Yes, she went to court. Embezzlement. Fraud. She avoided jail, thanks to a settlement that her name was Mud. I heard she tried to write a book of her own. No one bought it. Some truths write themselves. Years later, I was invited to speak at a global tech summit. Thousands in the audience. Cameras, lights, applause. But all I could think about Standing behind the podium was the old version of me, the one who used to sit on the bedroom floor with a second-hand laptop and cracked glasses, coding at 2 a.m. in the dark. She would have cried to see this. She would have been proud. I smiled and began with the same words I used to chant like a prayer when the world tried to convince me I was nothing. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to believe that silence doesn't mean surrender. It means you're building. Asterisk, asterisk. It's funny how the world turns. How the same places that once suffocated you can become echoes of power once reclaimed. One spring morning, I got a formal request through a university liaison to speak at my old high school. At first, I almost declined. I didn't need the nostalgia. I certainly didn't need the ghosts. But something tugged at me. Not for them. Not even for the school. But for the girl I used to be. Walking those halls with hunched shoulders and quiet eyes. Wearing oversized sweaters and headphones. Just to disappear. She deserved to walk back in with her chin held high. So I said yes. Auditorium was packed. Students filed in with sleepy curiosity. Teachers hovered at the sides, whispering reminders for everyone to stay quiet and be respectful. I stepped onto the stage in a simple black blouse, jeans and flats. No designer label. No need. Because when you know who you are, you don't wear your worth, you carry it. I scanned the crowd and found her. Marissa. Sitting 3 rows from the back. I hadn't seen her in person in years. Her face had aged not just with time, but with consequence. But she held herself together. Always had. Our eyes met briefly. No nod. No recognition. Just 2 women on opposite sides of the same silence. I turned back to the microphone. Hi everyone. I'm here today to tell you something you probably don't hear enough. Your dreams don't have to fit inside someone else's idea of your worth. Few heads lifted. When I was here, I wasn't anyone. Not on paper, anyway. I didn't play sports. I wasn't prom queen. I wasn't even invited to most birthday parties. A few quiet chuckles. But what I was underestimated. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that there's power in being overlooked. I told them about building my company in silence. About coding through hunger. About being called a lowlife. And how I wore that word like a chain until I learned to melt it down into armor. The applause afterward was loud. But it wasn't what mattered. What mattered was when a girl with frizzy hair and 2 big shoes came up to me afterward and whispered, "Thank you." I thought I was alone. That was the moment. The real win. Later in the hallway, as the students filed out, I passed Marissa. She stood alone, arms crossed tightly, trying to pretend like she was just another parent. I didn't plan to speak, but I paused. Just for a second, and softly, I said, "I forgive you." Her lips parted slightly. I didn't wait for a response. Didn't need one, because forgiveness wasn't for her. It was the final key to my freedom. Walked out of that building with the sun on my face and a weight I hadn't realized. I still carried finally lifted from my shoulders. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just exhaled. Years of pain. Years of proving. Years of building my life from ashes. Someone else lit. Gone with a breath. The Lowlife project grew. We opened branches in 2 more cities. Girls who had never been believed before were getting internships, scholarships, publishing books, launching startups. I saw pieces of myself in all of them. And yet, none of them were just me. They were stronger. They had a place to start from. They didn't have to crawl, alone in the dark. Because I lit a torch behind me. And that light would never go out again. One evening, I found myself in front of my mother's grave. I hadn't been there in a long time. Not because I didn't care, but because, for so long, I couldn't face the silence that came with her absence. I knelt in the grass and placed fresh white lily down. You would have loved the girls at the center, I whispered. You would have loved what I became. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. I wasn't just successful, I was whole. Asterisk, asterisk, some stories end with dramatic closure. A door slamming, a courtroom verdict, a villain exposed in front of a crowd. But mine? It ends with softness with light. A quiet woman standing at the top of her own mountain, looking down not to gloat, but to remember to honor the climb. Years had passed. The Lowlife project was now international. We had centers in 6 countries. Hundreds of women mentored. Thousands of lives changed. And still, every morning I woke up with the same hunger, not for money, not for applause, but for meaning. I spent my days teaching, guiding, walking the campus with bare feet and a notebook. My team joked that I was the CEO who couldn't sit still, but I had already sat still too long as a child. I wasn't wasting another moment waiting to be seen. Now, I led. One day, a young woman named Farida approached me after a workshop. She held a binder full of notes, her hands shaking. I read your book 3 times, she whispered. I grew up with a stepmother like yours. I used to think maybe it was me. Maybe I was broken. I nodded. And now? I asked. She straightened her shoulders, smiled. Now, I know I'm not the problem. I'm the beginning of the solution. That was everything. I rarely thought about Marissa anymore. Occasionally, someone would bring her up, ask me how I felt knowing the woman who called me a lowlife now lived in a rented studio apartment above a bakery. I'd smile gently, because pity isn't power. Letting go is. She could have had a piece of this story. She chose bitterness instead. Asterisk, asterisk, as for my father, he sent me one final letter before he passed. It was simple, honest. I never knew how to protect you. I only knew how to survive her. I hope you found a way to live beyond us. I did. And I still am. On the 10th anniversary of the first Lowlife project, we hosted a gala. Not a fancy one. No red carpet. Just women and girls from around the world gathered in one room, celebrating survival and rebirth. They insisted I say a few words. So I stood at the podium, in the same black flats I'd worn to my first interview, and spoke from the heart. You were never too small. You were never too late. You were never what they said you were. You are exactly who you're meant to be. And they're terrified because you're not asking for permission anymore. Tears. Applause. Joy. Not revenge. Just freedom. That night, as the stars came out, I sat by the lake on campus, barefoot and content. I pulled out a journal and wrote one final entry under the same line I'd once scribbled in pencil years ago. Forgive them, even if they never say sorry. Under it, I wrote, done. And I didn't need their apology to become whole. I only needed to remember that my story wasn't theirs to finish. So, if you're watching this and you've ever been made to feel small, if someone tried to write your ending before you'd even begun, if you've been called a lowlife, a burden, and nobody remember this, you are not the names they gave. You are the name you choose to build for yourself. And when you rise, do it without shouting, because there is nothing louder than the sound of a woman who walks away, without a word. Asterisk, asterisk, thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment revenge, so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one. Stay happy.